Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Holistic Human Optimization Show. I am your host, Ronnie Landis, and today we have an incredible episode lined up for everyone. This is a conversation and a transmission that I've been awaiting for a little while, and finally got myself into gear and contacted a dear friend and sister of mine and a colleague out from Sedona, Arizona, Miss Anahata Ananda. And this woman is, sometimes I don't even have the words for some of the people that I have on my show because I know them personally and I also know the work that they do in the world. And just a quick little kind of insight into who Anahata is. Blending the compassion and tenderness of an angel and the wisdom and strength of a shaman, Anahata Ananda guides profound journeys of healing and awakening. That is only a little snippet of who this woman is. And really, I just want to share before we dive in, because we have a lot of territory to dive into, and people are going to really get a good idea in transmission of like really what the work you do in the world is, because it is very profound. We really met for the first time, I want to say like 5-ish years ago, when I was on a particular hero's journey of my own, making a transition from one trajectory in my life and shifting over to another, which, interestingly enough, landed me in Sedona by necessity. I actually was literally drop shipped into Sedona after a book tour and had no money, had no anything, pretty much everything kind of just like, it was like things shifted completely for me. And I ended up in Sedona of all places. And that particular 4 months of my life is just such a milestone, because that was a particular time in my life where the entrepreneurial spark in me really took form. I had gone to the big island of Hawaii for the first time. Before that, I had been really doing my work in the world, but I hadn't fully integrated and embodied the kind of the prosperity and the entrepreneurial drive, and really brought that all together in a more grounded way. A lot of the pieces were kind of floating around, and I had to pull it into matter, as I'm sure we'll talk about. I had to pull it from the ethers and bring it into matter. And one of the memories I have when you and me first connected, and I'll just share this transparently, because we all reach these points in our journey. There's a particular moment where I was kind of like down and out financially. I didn't have a business set up. I didn't even have my online holistic nutrition certification course, which a lot of people that follow me know, and a lot of people are a part of that. I hadn't even created that. It was an idea that I didn't even know what it was going to be. I was just filming videos and kind of seeing where it goes. And then I remember there was a moment where I was like, oh man, rent's coming up and I really need to get my butt into gear here. And I reached out to a number of people just for support. How can I be of assistance? How can I help? How can we create an exchange? I remember reaching out to you, and it was like, I was like asking to borrow like $100 or something. And your response was so perfect. You basically like, well, I'm not going to loan the $100, but I will invite you over to my house to do a session, and we'll help you just empower yourself to manifest all the finances that you'll ever need in your life. And then I remember that's when we first really connected. You ran me through some breath work and just helped me attune myself, helped me get clear, and as to what are the next steps for Ronnie Landis. And so just wanted to share that with everyone, because that literally that whole milestone shifted me into the man that I am now. And so that's my little introduction for you.
It was such a blessing and synchronistic that our paths would cross at just that time. Ronnie, it's been an honor and a privilege, and just tickles me to see the success that you're attracting and what you're saying yes to, and how many people that you're helping along the way. Sedona has a way of kind of reeling people in at a time when they need to make a shift or let go of something or step into something, or have a course correction or a realignment in some way, or some tools or inspiration to catalyze a new chapter. And so I'm grateful that you landed here in Sedona, because it opened up a new chapter for you, and I'm happy to hear that.
Absolutely. And of course, as I mentioned, that's how you and me got connected. And funny enough, here we are right now sharing this message that is to be with the world, essentially. And, I want to start off I would love to get you to share a little bit about your background, because everybody has an origin story, you know, you being a superhero. What I love about superheroes is their origin story. How did they go from mere mortality or mere mortals, so to speak, into becoming their embodied superhero? I'd love to start there and then kind of transition into what you and me discussed yesterday, which is the state of the world and how we can empower ourselves through potential breakdowns or transitions that we may be going through in our lives.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's heating up for sure. And we're going to dive into that. So stay tuned, because we're going to get real juicy on this one. My mortal journey to even more mortalness started with my dark night of the soul. Definitely reached a time in my life where my health was falling apart. I didn't have the tools to maintain a healthy marriage at the time. I was in overwhelm as a mother, kind of not having community, society support, struggling with finances, and then health. Then my health took a turn, and I got a wake-up call. There was like, okay, something's got to change, and that really propelled me into, not that I wanted to, but had to kind of look at all areas of my life and say, is this working? Does it fit? Is this really what I want? And is this in integrity with who I am? And take an honest look about what isn't working in my life, and maybe just perhaps not blame everybody else about what wasn't working. Like, all right, well, I'm the common denominator in my life, so what could I do differently? And so it propelled me, Ronnie, into exploring alternative modalities for nutrition and emotional clearing, because I was angry and upset, and a lot of the emotions that I had been carrying from unresolved issues from past relationships, and definitely from my childhood. I had a great childhood, but there was a lot of things that just didn't quite get healed or resolved at the time, that were residual, that just kind of kept underlying there, that weren't ever addressed, that led to and perpetuated sugar addictions and indulgences with alcohol and food, of course, and shopping, and just a lot of avoidance. And so my story kind of was, I've got to make some changes, because I had twins at the time. My twins were just a couple years old, and I was like, look, this isn't just about me. I got to get my shit together, and I got to get my health, my emotional well-being, my relationship, dynamic, like tidied, and whatever isn't working has to go, and whatever needs to come into my life that's new must happen. So I started exploring shamanism, raw foods, cleansing, detoxification, meditation. I just dove in head first, Ronnie, in all of it. Like I just learning how to work with energy, relationships, empowerment, conscious languaging. And it was just a huge eye opener and a door opener for really soul medicine that I was so hungry for. So that was what started my journey. And then, of course, I felt so called to just continue studying shamanism. Everything that I was going to that was working for me, I decided to really go further with and study more. And that kind of created a combination of different areas of expertise that turned into Angelic Healing here in Sedona, is drawing on all of that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that name, by the way. Could you maybe take a moment to kind of unpack what that means exactly to you?
For me, shamangelic is this bridge of light and dark, and the shaman is not afraid to go into the shadow. The shaman is not afraid to be honest, to go face fears, to go look at the demons, to go dredge up the basement, and to humbly, courageously look at what is false. Where are you the problem? Maybe what lies or distortions are ready to be shattered. And so the shaman, in my exploration of shamanism in the healing arts and that shamanic path, really brings about that kind of raw, real, honest look at your demons. And then, of course, in the shamanism, there's also connection to the elements and balance. And there's this whole other pathway of medicine teachers that felt really nourishing for my soul. And it became an aspect of my spirituality to leverage nature as my church. And a lot of the traditions and customs really landed as home in my being. So it was great medicine for me. And then the angelic part is that part that connects to the divine, and that part that can be really tender and gentle and compassionate with the journey, so that it's balanced or tempered with that shamanic courage. There's this angelic gentleness. And when I was doing my shamanic training with one of my shamanic teachers, it was so fiery and so intense that sometimes it left me feeling maybe a little traumatized. And that's, I was like, for me personally, I felt the needing to round that out with gentleness and compassion and nurturing for the traumas, the falls, the fails, the wake-up calls, and the pain that happens along our journey, because we get stuck and it hurts. We fall down and it hurts. Our heart gets smashed and it hurts. And so I think the angelic part of my healing practice, as well as my mission, is to blend those two, feminine and masculine, and gentleness and fierce courage, and that alchemy seems to be pretty powerful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's really what I was, that's really the thing that I was thinking about when you mentioned that is really the light and the dark, the shadow and the light really integrating into union, right? Instead of being compartmentalized or only focusing on one element, but disowning the other one or pretending the other one doesn't exist. It's really bringing in this holistic and integrative perspective or embodiment of the human experience. And that's really so much of what the show is all about. Obviously, so many of the conversations are about health and wellness and dive deep into those aspects. But I also love to bring in the spiritual and metaphysical and personal transformation perspective. And it always does kind of lead into this integration of those two particular complementary opposites. And I think this is a great segue, because I think that's so much of the theme that's happening in our world as a collective and individually. You know, we talked about this yesterday as to what we were really going to dive into. Yeah. And it was really like the state of the world, like what's going on this planet right now, and not just projecting out there, but also using it as a mirror roadmap to what's going on in here, right? Like that's what it's all about. And I think that's what people are craving. I feel like people are craving more authenticity. They're craving more enrichment or ennobling of their life experience, instead of just kind of this mundane, being certain of every little thing that's going on in my life. I know what's going on. And then what happens when uncertainty comes in and cracks all that, whatever it is, the relationships, the money, the security, the food paradigms might change. Your diet might change if your identity is wrapped up in that. That's part of it. All these different things, careers, vocations, et cetera, et cetera. It is full on, isn't it?
It is full on. It is full on because we're preparing right now for the eye of the needle, Ronnie, and we can't go through that eye of the needle with all our baggage. We can't go through that with our partner. We can't go through that with limiting beliefs, playing small, letting fears drive our life. Like, we can't really navigate into that place, which our soul is so craving to be in our thriving, embodied, fullest expression. And it has been this consistent unraveling and unpacking and dissolving and unlayering and peeling open that has been happening now for a while. And now we're getting to the point where it's getting really juicy. And I was sharing with you that I've noticed even the pillars of light are shaking and crumbling, like dear soul families, that have been like pretty solid on their path. I'm witnessing major meltdowns across not just what's happening politically, but in the structures, and in the structures of our community. but also, of course, in our environment, because so within is what is manifest outside. And as we do what we do to our planet, it's the same thing we're doing to our bodies. And I was sharing that I've noticed dear friends, lots of clients that are just having everything crumble, not just, oh, I broke up, my partner and I broke up, but like huge diagnosis at the same time the business is failing, and then bankruptcy or relationship chaos, health crisis, just like full meltdown. So that, and I know that some of you watching or listening might be having a meltdown of your own, meaning that it might be hard to go to the same job that is not your soul path any longer. Any addictions or patterns might be taking its toll now on the health, where maybe there was the ability, Ronnie, to kind of ignore or blame or yeah, I know, but I'm still going to go do this thing. And we can get away with that for so long, and it seems like time's up with that. And with that is just, it's intense because we're going through the ringer. And it seems like all of the tools, all of the teachings that you or I or anybody listening or watching has been accumulating have got to be used and implemented and integrated together. I realize I can't just meditate or eat healthy. It's like I got to do both, and I also have to be really discerning about my choices, who I spend my time with, and it doesn't seem like there's any room for deviation any longer, and any distortion, any lie, any movement out of integrity seems to be getting corrected pretty quickly and pretty abruptly and pretty intensely. And I'm only speaking from truth, like, I'm in it too. I know you said superhero, but I'm like, yeah, from human to even more human, I think is the real superhero journey, is to acknowledge that, wow, as I wake up, I really become aware of how much so many parts of me are still living in illusion or attachment to somebody else's opinion or being accepted or success or labels or achievements. It's insidious, Ronnie. It goes deep, and then these weeds go in, deep, especially if we've been working with a particular paradigm for decades. Then those neural networks, those patterns, those beliefs are pretty entrenched in there. So I'm acknowledging that there's full major meltdowns, and so if you're watching or listening and going through that, you're certainly not alone, and that means you're on the path, because that means you're preparing for a better version of yourself and dismantling anything that won't fit in the next version. So
yeah, so this is perfect. One of the things that I talk about quite often is the plight of our language system and symbology, and kind of like how people are cosmologically and archetypically illiterate. And so we're very much in a world of literalism, right? We take religion and all these stories literally, and then we go and enact out these parables, which are largely metaphors or allegories, but they're taken out literally. And so we have all these religious wars and all this craziness, and the society, I notice, and just the conditioning. This isn't a personal kind of judgment. It's just the conditioning of the mind in the world is very much literal. It's literalizing everything. So there's a metaphorical kind of attunement, I think, that has to happen. Understanding the power of archetypes. What particular archetypical embodiment am I experiencing right now at this phase in my life journey, right? Like going deeper into the symbology of life instead of taking everything as like, taking it literally. So like, for example, I want to segue into this because you mentioned evolving into our greatest self, right? And I think that has to do, to be able to do that, we have to be able to see between the lines. We have to be able to see beyond the veil and like, okay, this is what's happening, or this is what appears to be happening. And what is the metaphor here? What is behind that? Like where, maybe it's just personal responsibility. Like, where have I deviated that has accumulated or perpetuated certain behaviors that now have created this wake-up call, or like what's behind the curtain, metaphorically speaking. I'd love to kind of bring that perspective as we segue into that.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I think that it's imperative right now that everybody, that each person on their soul's journey, because I say it's not about, oh, well, it's a buy one, get one, like my friend's gonna help get me in, or my partner, we're gonna, it's not that we can't do these things together, but this part of it, of the soul awakening, requires radical honesty and compassion in a non-judgmental way, to be like, okay, where am I full of shit? where am I perpetuating a problem here, or allowing an addiction, whether it's an addiction to technology, or it's an addiction to excuses, or an addiction to playing small, or addiction to a substance, or to a person, or to the past, or to an identity. Where is that keeping me from my greatness? And it's necessary at this time to be able to cultivate a witness that with neutrality is able to watch and stalk where there is that lie, where there's that ignoring that is kind of, if unchecked, going to contribute to our downfall and another wake-up call. And we're in a classroom. I look at it always like I'm in a classroom, because then no matter what is happening, it's happening for me. It's happening, and that shifts out of the victim into the villain, into the victorious. It shifts out of that, okay, it's your fault, Trump, it's your fault, Dad, it's your fault, partner, it's your fault, society. And it's like, whatever, like, what can I do about it? Okay, if these are the cards that are in front of me and I don't like them, how can I change them? Because we're all quite capable, 80,000 different choices and thoughts every day that we can decide if I'm not going to do that thing anymore. And maybe we need help. Maybe there's a radical honesty that says, wow, alcohol is really sabotaging my life. It's wreaking havoc. Let's just say that's one of many things that could be taking you off your game. Then it might require also radical courage to say, I'm going to need some help to break this pattern. And I'm going to need a sponsor, I'm going to need an advocate, and I'm going to need support around me. And I think that cultivating that witness is super vital, so that we're able to pattern or a way of being, or a substance addiction, or, well, I've always had this job, I've always been an attorney because everyone in my family's been an attorney. Whatever the stories are, attachments are, to unmingling that takes time. And we'll fall back into our old patterns, and sometimes we'll trip up. And I feel that at this point, in addition to the witness, to also be really gentle and compassionate, but also have an advocacy support council around that is providing tools and inspiration, coaching, to help get through that time, so that those patterns, the enmeshment, the neural networks in the brain can be dismantled, so that, somewhere somebody has been where you are and they've navigated to a better place. And so this is where having somebody that knows the way, whether it's with health, whether it's with relationships, whether it's with finances, whatever, that says, hey, help a brother out, help a sister out here, because you've been through this. Show me the way. And this is where humility and teamwork and cooperation is going to come in, because we, even though we're walking this journey alone, we don't have to walk it without support of people and spirit and advocates to, help us to stay on track when we needed it.
Beautifully said. And the main thing I pulled out of that was that we all need support. And I think part of the courage is also not just us taking the first step, but us asking for support too, right? Because then we have to be
Yeah.
vulnerable and authentic and real about what's going on. Otherwise, we're just playing, peekaboo with reality. And
yeah, and then we're also really hiding that part of us that binds us all together is our humanness that says, wow, I fall too, I fail too, I get off the path too, I sedate too. And I think especially for those of us that are, participating in the awakening of humanity, and that's all of us, that's everybody watching, that's everybody listening, we are all participating. You wouldn't be hearing this, you wouldn't be watching this if you didn't know you had a role to play. And so that I hope that lands deep in you, and you might not know exactly what or exactly how, but there is a role and there is a way for you to get off the bench and get in the game. And in the struggle of that, in the journey of that, we don't have to be the lone wolf in that. We still have to be making our own choices and accountable for our own screw-ups, and make our own choices and take our own tests in life. And the camaraderie that comes with go brother, or go sister, you can do that, or hey, I'm sorry you fell, my shoulder's right here for you, or get out of there, go do it. That's the inspiration to be like, yes, you can write a book, or yes, you can do that thing, put your product out there, put your voice out there. And I think that this is also a time for us all to step off the bench and get into inspired, authentic leadership in those areas that we're really passionate about, and get in the game of where we have some gift, some tool, some energy, some creativity, some inspiration that can help solve a problem. And the two big ones that we're dealing with, of course, humanity, of how we treat each other, and the human heart and humanity working together, and the other big one is the planet. And they're both interconnected. And if we don't know how to take care of each other, then we won't be able to take care of our planet. If we don't take care of our planet, we don't have a place to live. And then there's going to be more battling for scarce resources as those finite resources on a planet with billions of people begin to dwindle. Then if we don't know how to handle each other, in the human interaction with more consciousness, it's going to get darker fast.
Yeah, I mean, if that were ever a call for getting more creative and getting more in your genius and getting more authentic and real, I don't know what is. And I'm kind of curious from your perspective, after working with so many people, like, what is it that really you think holds people back from going from a spectator to being a full-on player in their own life? Like, I have my own theories and my own kind of perspectives, but I'm just curious what your perspective on that is.
Thank you for that, because like I see thousands, I've seen thousands of clients, and that will meet the ceiling of where there is some kind of resistance. Oh, but I couldn't. So definitely one is unworthiness. I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. That's one. A big one is a fear of rejection, because if I step out, will I lose my partner? Will I lose my best friend? Will my parents disown me? And I think a big one is a fear of losing that support network that's currently in place. And I say, if somebody is threatened by you following your mission and your path, then those are not your soul family. And then it's time for an upgrade, to surround yourself with people that see you and want you to shine. And then when you start doing that, are not threatened, their insecurities are not threatened. And so I think fear of rejection, and then of course fear of failure. Well, what if I write a book and nobody buys it? And it's like, yeah, what if? So what? So you went through the process and you birthed a book. You had the discipline to put yourself out there. You figured out how to edit, how to write, how to say no to other things, and put your words on paper. And I think, what a huge accomplishment. And I think people are so afraid to fail in the process of learning that it's like, well, I'm not even going to get I'm just not even going to get in the game. I'm not even going to play at all. And I look at that as, okay, well, I'm exploring. If I'm going on this new path, of course I don't have mastery in this path yet. And if I'm switching careers or if I'm learning a new skill, it's not uncommon for me to be an epic flop, do it, not so refined and mess up and laugh like, oh, okay, at least I learned what not to do 100 times. And at least I'm trying. I'd rather go out trying than, sitting on the sidelines, just throwing judgment daggers at everybody else that's trying. So I think that it's better for me, for my gifts, my magic, my voice to be out there than not. Do I have lots to learn? Yeah. Do I have it all together? No. But that doesn't stop me from trying and get back up and saying, all right, well, with that test, I did well here, but okay there, and really sucked it over here. and to be like, okay, let's try it again. And what could I learn? What could I ask for? Maybe there's some support. Maybe I need training. Maybe I need patience. Maybe maybe there's some aspect of the way I'm going about it. That's why I say the witnesser is so important, so that we can study, okay, well, what didn't work? Not from a place of blame and trauma and guilt and you idiot, but more from a place of a neutral perspective that says, okay, well, so that didn't work as planned, whether that's a relationship or a health thing or a business launch, whatever. And okay, well, what could I do differently? What are the missing pieces? And can somebody see something that I don't? Do I have a blind spot? And I think the hero's journey is the one that's willing to keep looking, keep refining, get back up, fall, fail, fly, and try again. Fall, fail, fly, try again. And I think that's the hero's journey. And it's not graceful, it's not easy, but I will tell you, it's a lot more joyful than being stuck with my joy and my magic still inside me. And the guilt and the unhappiness that I have felt at times when I was not on my soul path was really dark times. I'm much happier being on my soul's mission. Doesn't mean I don't struggle and flounder and fail, like often. And that's cool. That's okay. And I am at least having a good time along with other people that are flying, failing, and floundering, and trying again. I'm having fun with it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that's really the key too, is like you're only getting this one life in this particular version of it, and that's all we know. So, why hold yourself back just because you're afraid of what other people think? And that's usually like one of the big ones, right? And you kind of mentioned that already, and it's like it just feels so trivial, compared to the life that you can live and what's possible, what's on the other end of the mystery. And I think there's also this principle of like the need for certainty and uncertainty, and like having that in dynamic balance. Because it's like, if you're too uncertain, then it's like, then it's like flight or flight, right? You don't know what's going on. That's kind of what we're talking about earlier, is like, there is a lot of uncertainty, but then there's also, if you're too certain, everything's planned out and regimented, and you got everything lined up perfectly, then people will self-sabotage unconsciously because they need a little bit of novelty, right? They can't have everything mapped out because reality doesn't work that way. It's like a mystery. Like, you got to be taken on a mysterious adventure. Otherwise, your soul gets bored and then wants to like push the button, the self-destruct button. It's like, okay.
Right? And that's also, if we're so linear in our plan, then we miss all of these signals to say, oh, there was a left turn there, or pause, we want to learn this thing or try this thing or integrate this thing so that what you're doing can go to the next level. And so when there's such linear thinking and structure about it, that doesn't allow innovation, elevation, acceleration, shift, expansion, then we stagnate. It's like, well, this was the path, this was the mission, this is what I was going to do, which doesn't allow spirit or flexibility to keep making refinements and adjustment as we go on our journey. And that's where I like to feel it, this rhythm of feminine and masculine, and this rhythm of listening and intuition and inspiration and flexibility and openness of like, hey, help me out here. And then when that inspiration and that fire comes in, because that receptiveness is more feminine, and that listening and let me pause before I take action. That's kind of the left side of our body and the more creative part of our brain. But then there's also, once we get that vision or that mission, to pass it over to the masculine that says, go start taking action, boldly, courageously, try that new thing, learn that new thing, be diligent, have structure, say no to certain things so that you can get your life's work out there. But that within that masculine mission is to also continually be, is there anything that needs to change? Am I going in the right direction? Is there any signals from my last movements that are trying to get me to make a change in something? Is the body telling me something? Is my bank account telling me something? Is my soul trying to tell me something? And is spirit, through synchronicities or through pain, giving me signals to make a left, quit, stop, try this thing? And am I ignoring those? And I call that the clairignorance, because there's clairsentience where we can feel divine. There's claircognizance where we just kind of know. There's clairsentience where we feel. There's clairvoyance where we see. And there's clairaudience where we hear. And that's kind of like our channels to higher consciousness. And then there's clairignorance, which is like, yeah, I hear you, but screw you. I call that clairignorance. Or clairavoidance, where it's just like, yeah, I hear you, and I'm just avoiding the truth. I don't want to go down that path. I don't want to quit that thing. And so we're stubborn little buggers sometimes. and it will, otherwise then the longer we continue clairavoidance or clairignorance, then the wake-up call, the meltdown is just going to be that louder, more painful, which is totally optional. And sometimes that's what it takes, I've certainly attracted that hit brick wall many times as a learning opportunity, that after 100,000 or more signals that I just ignored. Because I'm a dense human being at times. So back to compassion and then try it again.
Yes, I mean, I love it. I can relate so much to every single thing you said. The clairignorance is just an interesting perspective. I never heard that term. I think you probably coined it. But that's something I think is worth mentioning too, because when we were talking yesterday, we got really raw and vulnerable, and I was just talking about, there's been times in my life where, and more recently, because of the paradigm and psychological collapses, where I wasn't as psychologically resilient because it felt like the walls were coming in and things were going awry in my relationship, and finances, business, just like this ebb and flow. Like me, I didn't even know. I was like, what am I even doing with my life? Where am I going? Am I even really making a difference after all this time, after the last 10 years? Am I even really doing anything? And just really going through that dark night of the soul. And there was a particular point where I was not okay with God. I was very, I knew who I was talking to or what I was talking to. And I was like, look, like if I'm going to stick around, then things got to change, and I need some signs. I need a raft. I need a sign. I need something, because I am not okay with this, and I feel alone. And you know what? If you don't want to, as I'm kind of anthropomorphizing God a little bit, like, look, if you don't want to interject here, then take me out, because I don't want to be here. And I've had those moments, and so I also want to mention that too, because A, we brought it up yesterday, and B, that's just kind of like what I notice a lot of people going through. Maybe not that exact thing, but that kind of energy of like, what do you do when your back's against the wall? And that may only last for a short amount of time, but when you're in it, it feels eternal.
Yeah. So thank you for that vulnerability. I think that everybody watching and listening has been at some point so down that they're like, God, is this all there is? And it's got to be better. There's got to be something better. And it is, that's why looking at that in the classroom that says, okay, this door is closing. There needs to be a shift. And I think that is always that level of pain, that rock bottom, in whatever way that looks like. Is it can look like an overdose, a divorce, a diagnosis. It can look like a lot of things that catalyze that. And one of the things that seems to be in common at that point is the catalyst to reach out for some divine intervention at that point. Even if it's like, hey, screw you, give me some help. If it's this both kind of, like this dialogue of like, I don't believe in you, but anyway, help a brother out, help a sister out here. And I think that's the soul crisis that is also going to catalyze a whole other level of spiritual faith in whatever that looks like for you. And for me right now, I can't be walking, the pathway is so razor thin, like I cannot be walking without divine guidance, because if my ego starts making the decisions for even one part of any part of the day, I'm screwed. Like I can ruin things very quickly when I'm not in that resonance with what is true, how can I keep my energy peaceful, even when like chaos and things are melting down. So I think that when we're going through it, just to know, I'm going to get through this and there's something on the other side better. And that's where the witnesser comes in. It's just like, I know you're struggling and it's a tsunami or it's a hurricane, but this too shall pass. And so instead of going into full on panic, meltdown, blame, I'm just going to overdose and, freak out mode, just to be like, okay, this is happening for me, not to me, and I'm going to get through it. There is a way through. And I think that calm voice is just so essential, because otherwise our inner dialogue can perpetuate so quickly a downward spiral that the checkout plan seems to be the only option. And I want to speak to those that have ever been on that doorstep of like, hey, is the checkout plan the only option here? To be like, it is an option. Okay, I hear you. And most likely there's another doorway presenting itself, that if you just pause, if you just wait, and if you just ask, and then go into that witnesser to say, okay, well, what isn't working? What could be differently? What choice am I making and repeating that is continuing to create some chaos, some poor health, some relationship drama, and bring it back to what can I do differently? Because I'm only here because of my last choices. That's truly the empowering truth, is I am only here experiencing this reality now and the full pain of it because of my last choices. And so what can I choose differently? What can I unchoose? And, Gary Zukav, when in my Dark Night of Soul, that was a book that really helped me, Seed of the Soul. And he's like, if you want a different outcome, make a different choice. And I'm like, oh, huh, and I was like, yeah, but it's his fault and I'm angry. And it was just like, okay, we'll start with making a different choice right there. Not blaming, not sedating, not running and hiding. Because I think that when we're down in the pit of despair, our go-tos tend to be blame, run, hide, sedate, ignore. And so what if I didn't repeat those choices? Maybe not all of those are your jam, but maybe one of them, like sedate, is what you turn to when things aren't going well. Either way, can I make a different choice instead of numbing, blaming, hiding, running, or sedating, or ignoring? What if I actually looked at it? What if I didn't run and I actually stayed? What if I didn't blame and I took accountability for my part in it? What if I didn't sedate and I actually felt my anger, my resentment, my passion, my excitement, my frustration? What if I actually felt it and moved through those waters of emotion to be like, and so what would I want to do differently? Like, there's always an antidote on the other side of that ocean of emotion. Like, there's treasures deep in there and we're so quick to avoid it. And so I think at this time when there's a lot of chaos happening in different aspects of your life and sometimes simultaneously, like the perfect storm, and you're right in the midst of that, is to just stay cool, stay calm, and start looking at what choices you can change that are going to start to change your trajectory from a downward spiral, whether that's in your finances or in your relationship or your health or your soul path or whatever. What changes can you make to start catalyzing an upward spiral, and what help do you need along the way? Because somebody is there. Somebody's been where you are, and somebody's on the other side. And that's where it's like, yeah, somebody that's on the other side, show me how to navigate this path. And somebody that believes that I can do this, I'm going to need to surround myself with yes people. Like, yes, you can sober up. Yes, you can find, the way to have a healthier relationship with your partner. Yes, you can have a healthier body. Yes, you can find a career that nourishes your soul and doesn't make you depressed just by the thought of going to work. Like, yes, it's possible. And so there's going to need to be an element of faith for sure to be able to start moving, and support, and probably, somebody guiding, or multiple people guiding that says, hey, how do you do this entrepreneur thing? How do you do this healthy relationship thing? How do you do this heal from cancer thing? Somebody's done it, so we ask for help. And surround ourselves with people who want us to succeed, for sure. A lot of upgrading the current, I've done that over and over and over again, of just updating my circle of influence.
I mean, geez, like right there, that's a whole thing in of itself. Because I think one of the things that's made me such a great networker, and is exactly that. I'm constantly, and it doesn't mean I'm disbanding from other people. I'm just on the move. I'm just moving around. I'm moving along. Yeah. Not everybody is on the same trajectory where we meet up in certain pockets, like you and I, and then we keep doing our thing and we return. And I'm constantly doing that too. And just to, what came up for me on a personal level from everything that you shared about surrounding ourselves with the people that affirm us, there's like two things, basically. One of them is that we don't want any energy leakages, right? If we're trying to make a shift and we're shifting the neuro network and the pathways in our brain, those things have been firmly stabilized there. So it's going to take some work and some consistency, and we don't want any energies that are counterproductive, that are opposing the momentum that we're trying to create. And so that part right there, I think, is just so essential. And ultimately, what is that? That's being congruent. That's being in alignment. And it's like, so then it translates holistically into like what you eat, what you think, how you feel, your spiritual practice, who you surround yourself with. And it may not start all there for somebody, but it's got to start somewhere. And then eventually, that I think is the journey you, me, and so many other people have been on, is where we start with one thing and then it creates a momentum. And if we can surround ourselves with the right people and get those people that support us and affirm us and say yes to us, not say yes to us, but say yes for us in service of us, then and are also willing to say no to us if we're out of alignment. That's another piece, right? That are also willing to be honest.
Yeah, that says, hey, you're playing small, or actually you're not being accountable. And I think that the soul family does that. They're not afraid to be honest, and and able to be there, to kind of help you pick up the pieces, and also call you out when you're playing small. Like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you've got this gift. What are you doing? How can I support you, spreading your wings? And I teach a course at my Empowerment and Awakening weekend called Quantum Manifestation. And it breaks that down into what all do you need to be surrounding yourself with, and people is one of those, to just have a positive community around you that also are not afraid to be honest with you, but positive mindset, positive influences on media, all of that, where it's just like every area of your life. And do I have positive support reinforcing the upward spiral? And where can I fast from or take a break from any substances, environments, conversations, media that contributes to my downward spiral, which may break some patterns or maybe even dissolve some relationships. And it's okay for you to grow one of my clients, breast cancer, and she's like, it's a matter of life or death. And I said, well, is it more important for you to feed all of your energy to this drama queen energy sucker that is, sucking on you every minute? I'm like, no wonder there's breast cancer issues. And she's like, well, I always felt obligated. And I said, well, maybe that's the issue, is not feeling obligated to always be a dumping house for everybody, for other people's negativity or drama. There's a difference between holding a space when you are in this space and when you're available to be support for somebody else, but also know when to have clear boundaries to be like, wait, I'm healing. I'm not in a place right now in this moment because I'm rebuilding my body from the inside out, and I need positive vibrations around me right now just so that I'm here next year this time, like that's like reality check. And during my session with this one client, I'm like, reality check, unless this pattern changes, what is actually at stake here?
Yeah.
And she goes, well, whether or not I have a relapse, whether or not this cancer actually leaves my body. I'm like, if it's that important, then you don't owe anybody anything ever, except for, of course, okay, my children, right? But breaking those patterns of feeling obligated is really liberating as well. So yeah, when we're in this place where we're doing this upward spiral, we'll need to be looking at anything that might leak the energy and where to put clear boundaries with compassion. Because that doesn't mean that friend doesn't need the support that they need, but they actually might need a therapist, rather than just being a cesspool for dumping. Every time she's like, every time she has a chaos or drama, I'm getting a text, an email, a phone message, or a phone call about it. And I mean, it was literally sucking the life out of her. And I was like, okay, and I saw her a year later, just this last year, and she goes, oh my God, that saved my life. That it's okay for me to say no, and yes to myself, because that's being in integrity and following your soul path is also, how can I prioritize what my mission and say no to some things that would pull me off track, and send blessings and support and love for anything that isn't in resonance, but and show up in whatever ways feel in alignment. And it's okay for you to grow and move forward and move on. It's okay.
I mean, yeah, that's not okay. I don't know what is. I mean, one of the things that came up in my mind in that particular example is like, hey, like, you don't know anyone else, but what better of an impact can you make on other people's lives if you get healthy and you heal yourself? Like, that friendship will be much more valuable if you can get onto the other side of this situation than you being limited and disempowered and may or may not make it out of this situation. Like, it's like, I feel like, and we don't have a lot of time left, but I feel like maybe I just get your perspective on this too. It's like, one of the big issues, and I think it's similar to the literalism thing, I think one of the big issues that people are dealing with is short-term gratification or short-term versus a long-term fulfillment, and really objectifying the two and taking them and putting them on the table and really getting a clear neutral view of like, okay, this is short-term and it feels good. I get that little dopamine Facebook like hit right here, but then it's actually draining my bank account. And I'm worse off the next day for it. And it's kind of like it's progressive, but for some reason, I think that's just the addictive thing too, that you kind of brushstroked. And then there's the other thing here, which is basically what we really want, which is long-term fulfillment in the manifestation of our heart's desire. I'd love to just speak to that as kind of piggybacking on this.
Yeah, thanks for that. Reverend Michael Beckwith has a great little zinger on this that really hit home with me when he was talking about following your mission. He goes, it's going to take discipline. And I was like, yes, meaning I'm going to need to say no to certain things. Like you're an author, right? You had to say no in order to get a book out. oh, everyone else is going to this thing Friday night, and or everybody else is going here or doing that, and you're like, I'm writing my book, or I'm working on this particular thing, and that term really hit home, blisscipline, and for me, it's also that the sword of discernment. Archangel Michael has this sword of discernment that says, is this action or this choice moving me in the direction of alignment and purpose? Or is it taking me away from that? And so I think blisscipline and discernment and prioritizing that is really important to be able to develop a level of honesty and movement into what structures do I need to create and like hold firm to, so that my morning routine is not get up and go right onto electronics, but my morning routine is get up, meditate, breath work, meditate, drink water, move the body, go learn something. And it's just like, that's the morning. And having the discipline or the blisscipline to say, by taking care of myself, by having divine spiritual connection, by doing my yoga, by inspiring my brain with positive content, learning something, then I set the day up for something great. Otherwise, I'm just letting everybody else and their agendas run my day and my life right into bankruptcy, right into soul corruption, right into disease. And this is this necessity to really take back control of our life and say, wait, let me prioritize those tasks and those choices that move me in the direction of my greatness or my mission, and also be really honest about where I need to be a little bit more blissciplined about things that are distracting me or sucking that energy, whether that's people, whether that's people, or whether that is substance, or a habit or a laziness that is sabotaging. And so blisscipline is really necessary for those people that are really stepping into their greatness. It's essential to have structure and a divine connection, and then flexibility within that, so that you also have time to play and create and laugh and rest. But yeah, I think that it's super essential. If you're really going to want to move forward in progress, you'll need to be able to say no to things that aren't a fit for you or aligned for you, and feel great about it.
Yeah, I mean, final insight I want to get, just to wrap up the wrap a tie on the whole conversation. We started with the whole kind of like breakdown of the world and the archetypes and the metaphors behind all that, and then it went into some really amazing multiple territories. And I'd like to just kind of finalize on that note, as we are navigating. I think the answer you gave is brilliant, but as we're navigating the trajectory of our lives and what we're going to do on the planet, if we haven't already figured that out, or if we have, how we're going to do it at a greater level of our capacity, what do you feel intuitively that everyone that will benefit from this really needs to take heart to make those changes in their life?
If not now, when? There's, we're waiting for you. We're waiting for you. You're the one we've been waiting for. It's not what's happening in the White House. It's not about your parents. It's not about your partner. It's not about anything else. You're the ones we've been waiting for, because there's pieces of the puzzle that each of us has. And so it's not about just waiting for some leader to fix it all for us. You're the one that we've been waiting for. And I know greatness lies within you. I know that there is power beyond measure inside of you. And if you've already been tapping that right on, and if you know it's there and you don't know how to do it, well, that's where you get to ask for help. You're listening to this right now. Both Ronnie and I do this. We do this work to help people navigate in different ways, but complementary ways, to really help people navigate their soul path. And so if you're still listening, if you're still watching, that's because this is landing as medicine and truth inside you, or you would have clicked off already. So I want to acknowledge you for staying with it, and also recognize this is a prayer that you've been asking for, this transmission, what occurred today, some of the things, play it back again, and take notes and see where that might catalyze a change in you to make a different choice that either pulls you out of a downward spiral and gets you in that upward momentum, or it amplifies your, and accelerates your greatness, or kind of reinforces some of those blind spots or weak links that might be, an unstable platform before you launch to the next level of that. And every time I go to the next level, my platform gets a whole reworking, restructuring, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. I just built that. And it's just like, yeah, but that's not going to sustain at the next level. You're going to have to dismantle that and only take this piece or none of it, and rebuild it stronger at the next level. And so we kind of get comfortable with doing that. And so if not now, when? Because you do have the resources available. There are people that are where you want to be. And so follow your heart, trust your intuition, and get going. Let's go.
Wow.
Let's do it.
that was perfect, and you're speaking right to me because you're looking right at me. So I'm like, oh, okay. I better turn up the heat here. So okay, amazing. This conversation has been so beautiful, so amazing. I knew so many incredible nuggets would transpire through it, and with that in particular that you just shared. Where can people see more about your work? I know that you are getting ready to initiate a program that's going to help people really live the best life ever in 2019. I know you have many other programs and things that people can benefit from. Where can they find that?
Yes, thank you for asking. I'll make sure that we get the link in the comments section below or in the bio, wherever this is. We'll get it posted there. In the comment section. But the Quantum Leap program, it is for 2019, it is about really breaking down 1 month at a time with videos and inspirational content, tools, roadmaps, checklists, action steps, so that each month we're just focusing on one particular thing to implement and to break old patterns and habits with an accountability, inspiration. So that I'm super excited about that, because a lot of times people say, oh, well, I know better, but I don't have the support, inspiration, accountability, or community. And so there'll be a Facebook community, monthly videos, and action steps that you can take to really create a roadmap for that. Mm-hmm. So that's called the Quantum Leap program. And there's the option for a VIP program that for people that are wanting to do a mastermind intensive here in Sedona and get some deeper work with me as that part of that process, which is like, you do one-on work with me and we're going to go somewhere. So there's that. Of course, I run a healing practice here in Sedona. My favorite weekend is the Empowerment and Awakening weekend. That's a 3.5-day intensive. And if you're really better in a live learning environment, that's phenomenal. 9 courses where we dive deep into understanding relationships, clear boundaries, quantum manifestation, vibrant nutrition, spirituality, meditation, all of it, understanding the chakras, feminine and masculine balance, and really what are the tools that everybody just kind of needs to live a thriving, empowered life, because we weren't taught them. And so this has been decades of research, trial and error, and this is what I share with thousands of my clients. So that weekend is phenomenal. The next one is October and again in March. So we'll put the link there for that too. And of course, I'm here in Sedona with, private sessions, group retreats, a Goddess Awakening retreat. I'm just a warehouse of solutions and resources, free stuff, downloadable things, inspirations. There's everything from free all the way to super intensive, whatever level of support and inspiration you're ready to say yes to.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I mean, that sounds incredible, especially if anyone's near Sedona, in Sedona, wants to go to Sedona. I obviously, I live there and I go back as much as I can. I think I might need to take a trip there to do a little writing, a little 2-week writing vacation. Just such an incredible vortex and such an incredible opportunity to work with this amazing woman. So if any of you are feeling that call, definitely reach out to Anahata. Definitely let her know Ronnie Landis said hi.
Yes. And the website is shamangelichealing.com, because you can find everything that I've talked about there. There's some new links we're just looking to post, but yeah, there's always new stuff, but shamangelichealing.com. And yes, Ronnie, come and play, come and visit for sure. Would love that.
Awesome. This has been so absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for making the time and sharing with me and my audience. It's been the best ever.
Yes. And Ronnie, thank you for doing this, for bringing this message out, and for bringing inspirational content to the masses. Thank you for stepping out of any of your stories to come into being a beacon of light, an inspiration and wisdom keeper, and a way shower. So thank you, brother.
You're welcome. Because those stories are they're persistent, but been a lot of work. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and bless each of you. Looking forward to seeing you step into quantum greatness and success in 2019 and beyond. Totally.